Hello, DawgNation. Kaylee, Mansell, Mike Griffith, and we are back for day 2 of the Reese's Senior Bowl coverage. The stars were out today. The sun is shining. I'm having to wear my sunglasses because I can't see anything, but we did have the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs out on the field today. Got the chance to see Kirby Smart watching his guys. What do you think he thought of their performance today?
Well, he was really proud of them. I got a chance to watch him visit with Ladd and William Mote, the snapper, and Marcus Rosemy-Jacks, and I'm sure at some point, you know, it's such a mob of people down there. It's hard to pick up on where everybody is, but I saw Kirby, and, you know, he stepped by, you know, shook my hand, said, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" He said, "You gonna do a little media today?" He goes, "No, I'm not gonna do a little media today." I said, "But all these players," and he was gone in a flash. Look, Kirby's here for his guys. He's here to support his players, and, you know, he's off recruiting. I mean, he's in the state recruiting, and look, Kirby's not a guy that's going to talk just to talk. That's just not his style.
No wasted words.
No, he doesn't waste his energy, and I talk about that all the time. You know, does this help him win a championship? And unfortunately, I don't think we can help him win a championship today interviewing him. So there'll come a time and a place at Pro Day when all the NFL teams show up at Georgia, which all 32 teams will be there. Mike Tomlin will be there as well. I saw Mike Tomlin already dapping up Ladd McConkey yesterday, trying to get the inside track on him like he did George Pickens. That was pretty obvious a couple years ago. But look, Kirby's got to move and shake. He's got things to do. He's got players to recruit. Does it help him win a championship? Yes or no? He was here to support the guys that helped him win championships, and now he's moving on looking for the next champions.
I can't imagine what it must feel like from a coach's perspective to see your players get to this point, because at the end of the day, it's all about development. When you go to the University of Georgia, you know you're getting developed, and it's because of this right here. You see the level of competition that these Georgia Bulldogs bring. So I can't imagine from what Kirby's perspective what it's like to get the chance to see his guys out here knowing that he prepared and trained them for moments like this.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a different Kirby. You know, he was so relaxed and a big, genuine smile. So happy for these young men as they pursue their dreams, and he knows. I mean, think about everything they've been through together. I mean, all those practices, and, you know, even talking with JT Daniels, you know, asking him about, you know, work playing for Kirby, and of course JT's still been floating around here talking to a lot of different people. I know Clemson's got an opening on their staff. It's pretty interesting to hear all the moving and shaking behind the scenes, and talking with Ladd. You know, we asked him, you know, how were the practices here compared to Georgia? And he said, well, that's a little bit different. You don't got Kirby Smart on the microphone every day busting on you, and the players aren't hitting you. And, you know, Kaylee, getting into those players, you had some observations earlier. I mean, look, you know, Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith, they like to hit people. This is what they do. And it's almost not fair to see them out here unable to hit, because in just rare, you know, open space, I don't know that that's necessarily, you know, going to be the strength. I think they like to watch these guys close and make big hits. But you had an observation. You thought that it was kind of tough in coverage at times today.
Yeah, especially for a guy like Javon, like you said, who his strength is hitting people. I don't think we've seen the best of him so far, but we're also not allowing him the ability to see his strength. But one thing I thought was really cool is anytime we get to watch the Georgia players go head-to-head, it's a special moment. We got to see Javon and Ladd go one-on-one. And I have to say, Ladd broke his ankles today, but I'm sure that that's not the first time that it's happened amongst these last 3 or 4 years playing together.
I don't think anybody's going to cover Ladd.
No.
I think Ladd McConkey has become the story of the draft with his performance yesterday, and I know he wasn't 100 today. Remember, he's still rehabbing that ankle.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was out there says everything about him, because he's got the combine in a month. But, you know, Ladd's out there making plays. I don't know if anybody can cover him. I'm serious, and I've said it before. He's got that Christian McCaffrey-like quickness. He's just faster than everybody else, and he's such a great technician. He's been such an amazing story. I'll tell you who else looked really fast, and that's Marcus Rosemy-Jacks.
Yeah.
I thought number 1 looked faster than I've ever seen him at Georgia, and I don't know if it's just that he's had some time to rest his legs a little bit, or if he's been doing some speed training. But Marcus Rosemy-Jacks turned a corner today on one of those DBs, and I was blown away with the speed. And I thought, you know, I don't really think of Marcus as a fast guy. I mean, relative to other college players. I mean, obviously he's going to outrun, you know, like I said, 1,000 people on the planet, 1,000 out of 1,001 people on the planet. But when you get into the elite, I don't think of him as a speed merchant necessarily, but today the quickness and the way he turned that corner, I mean, I think he is having a dynamite camp. And yeah, Ladd is the guy that some people are talking about as a potential first-round pick. That's going to have a lot to do with his medical when he gets to the combine. They're going to want to see what kind of shape he's in and what 40 he runs. But I wonder if Marcus Rosemy-Jacks could creep up into day 2. I wonder if he could become a third-round draft pick. A lot of people look at him as a third-day pick. I wonder if he can get into the second day as a late third-round guy with a really good combine, as well as this week at the Senior Bowl.
I think it's really interesting that you make that comparison between Ladd and Christian McCaffrey, because one thing you know about me is I'm pretty observant, and when I'm wearing these sunglasses, nobody really knows if I'm looking at them or if I'm listening to them. But one thing that I caught today is I had 2 scouts from the 49ers on the field right in front of me, and they were watching Ladd. They were staring him down. They were pointing at him. I know that's a good sign. How cool would it be to see Christian McCaffrey and Ladd McConkey on the same team?
That'd be unbelievable. I mean, listen, wherever Ladd goes, he's going to be a difference maker. The whole thing with Ladd is the durability, and that's where NFL teams have to decide, if he just caught a couple of bad breaks at Georgia, is this a guy that can stay healthy? They wonder that about all the guys, right? But when they look at the medical history, Ladd had the back injury at the start of the year. This stuff's all going to get talked about. And here's the thing, when it's like I tell these guys before they go into this process, when you're coming out as a recruit, all you hear is the good things. Like I said, I always point to those Jeff Sentell articles. In fact, I want Jeff to write my obituary someday, because nobody makes anybody sound any better than Jeff Sentell. And all you talk about is the positives when the kids are coming out of high school. Well, the NFL draft is the complete opposite. All they want to do is talk about the negatives and pick a guy apart and, well, what can't he do, and what's the injury history, and what were the statistics, and how did he, which event. It's not what you did great at the, unless it's Jordan Davis running a 4.72 or something stupid like that. It's, well, what's your, what event were you, maybe his vertical wasn't good. Or Ladd is going to test out just fine if that ankle is right. I really think it's going to come down to the medical, and a team's going to decide, how high up do you want to take Ladd McConkey, and how durable do you think he can be? Because clearly when he's on the field, I mean, he has looked as unstoppable at the Senior Bowl as anybody I've seen in one of these Senior Bowl events.
Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. We mentioned earlier Javon didn't have the best day. I actually thought that Tyke had a good day. His coverage looked good. His footwork looked good. After you've seen him now for 2 days, what's the ceiling and the floor for Tyke in the draft?
Yeah, I think Tyke's had a great event. Tyke's a great college player. Here's the thing where it's kind of unfair, okay? So it just gets unfair, and, they want safeties that are 6 feet or taller. And people say, well, why didn't Javon come back another year? Why didn't Tyke come back? Because they're not going to grow an inch, and they're not going to get any faster. They're going to be the same 5'11" guy. Now, could they show marginal improvement? Perhaps the safety class isn't as deep. I mean, those are things that agents have to decide and weigh against the potential for a risk of injury, right? And I think they just looked at Javon and Tyke and said, look, you guys aren't going to get that much better, coming back another year. And unless you grow an inch, you're probably not going to be picked in the first round. There's not a lot of first-round safeties. Lewis Seen was a 6-foot-plus guy, right? Malachi, right around that 6-foot tall frame. So they're not going to get any taller. They're probably not going to get any faster. So it was time to cash in. And, you mentioned Javon being, I don't know that I thought he was completely healthy all year. He was down in Pensacola with Ladd, where, Ladd was being seen by William Andrews, the renowned orthopedic specialist, for the rehab. I think Javon was probably, down there for a reason too. And I've not heard him say that, and I haven't had a chance to talk with him. We're going to talk to him media day in a bit. I'm going to ask him about that, because I think when Javon Bullard is on his game, I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, we saw that. He was I think he was the defensive MVP of both games in 2022 in the college football playoffs. And, he's a playmaker. He's a huge hitter. Again, I just don't know that the skeleton work out here that he's doing. I don't know if that's his thing, right? He likes to hit people. He likes to put his hands on people. Not to say that he can't cover, but I do think it's a big-time advantage when these guys are out here, not in full equipment, and it's quarterbacks and running backs in these skeleton drills.
So one guy who's gotten more coverage in the last 2 days than probably all season long is William Mote, the long snapper who is here. He's the only long snapper representing his team, so every single play he's getting that one-on-one opportunity. How have you been impressed by his performances so far?
Well, he's done really well, and I just interviewed William, and I said, well, I guess it's a good thing that nobody knows who you are, because when you're a long snapper, you don't want anybody to know who you are. If they know who you are, you've done something wrong. And I'm like, William Mote, I don't think I've ever heard of this guy. I don't know, what has he really done? No, I mean, obviously I know who William is, but he's had a tremendous career, and I think he's going to be one of the guys. But Kaylee, it's tough. Just like a punter or a kicker, there's only so many of these guys in the NFL, and when they get those jobs, they don't turn over. They stay in the league a long, long time. So there's a lot of competition for William, but just the fact that he's here tells you that he's one of the most elite at his positions, right? Because there's no long snapper that's going to turn down the Senior Bowl and be like, nah, I'm the number one long snapper. I'm not coming, right? Okay, first-round quarterbacks, Caleb Williams can get away with that, right? Brock Bowers doesn't have to be here competing with the tight ends. But just to be one of the top, that already says he's one of the top long snappers coming out. And then it gets into what team needs a long snapper and who are you trying out for and what veteran are you essentially trying to beat out. So he's done a really nice job. He was one of the guys that Kirby was talking to. He's a Birmingham kid, a guy that Kirby's probably known for a long time. One of these guys you could kind of see coming up. So I think George has been really well represented. We have not mentioned Dejon Edwards yet.
That's where I wanted to go with that. I was going to say for our last individual analysis.
I mean, Connor Riley would probably take offense at this point, but I'm not going to. Look, listen, Dejon just keeps putting in the work.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just stacking one good practice after another. And look, he's not going to be the fastest guy out here. He's not going to be the biggest running back. But I will say, I measured him up against the Missouri running back Corey Schrader, and I know Georgia fans remember Corey Schrader. That guy was a bull. He went over 1,600 yards rushing, right? And you put Dejon up next to this guy, they're the same size.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this too. Corey Schrader got knocked on his you-know-what today. I mean, it's getting rough out here. Day 2 was rough, Kaylee. I don't know if you noticed the difference, but when these linemen were in drills with one another, they're not friends anymore. I saw somebody get their helmet torn off, and, I mean, things were getting pretty steamy out there, and these guys are already getting sick of each other. Tomorrow they're really going to be sick of each other. They're not going to be able to wait to get to the other team in the game on Saturday at 2:30, all those Michigan helmets lined up across from them. They're going to be going after those guys, but things are getting a little steamy out here, a little chippy out here, and Dejon's fine with that. Dejon is a physical guy. He's a no-nonsense guy. He's not going to talk any trash. You never see Dejon Edwards with any extracurricular. He just goes and does his job, and I do believe that he's going to win an NFL roster spot with his performance out here because he is really taking care of business. I haven't seen him drop any balls. Everything he's catching, he looks really good in the open field. Again, I mean, he's not going to, turn into DeAndre Swift overnight, but this is a guy that's going to move the chains for you. He's going to get what's there. The ball control is there. The pass protection is outstanding, and I think these NFL teams will take note of him.
So for a guy like Dejon Edwards, there's obviously a lot of running backs on here. That means less reps for him.
Right.
What would you like to see out of him tomorrow that you think can put him on the radar for all the scouts that are out here?
Just the physicality. I like the physicality. I think it's really important that these guys are able, like I said, to do the blitz pickup, to run through those lines, and Dejon he's a tough, durable guy, and you look at a guy like that and say, could this be my third or fourth running back? Is this a guy that can learn the offense, that I can rely on? I can put him in there if there's an injury. Maybe he can return punts or kicks or be on coverage teams. What's he like in the locker room? Well, what he's like in the locker room is he takes care of business, and he's consistent, and he's physical, and there's no drama and there's no distraction. Again, these guys are paying close attention to the mannerisms of these players, how they handle themselves, how they carry themselves, and how they learn the offense. And so far, I think Dejon has been spot on all of his assignments with no drops, and I think he's shown a little bit of that durability and physicality, and I think you want to show more of it. Just keep coming to work, pounding it every day, making that statement, and more people see that G and say, you know what, that's one of those Georgia guys. He's a 2-time national champion. This is a guy that led the Georgia Bulldogs in rushing in 2023.
So I want to end on this because I feel like we didn't get to harp on it enough yesterday. You mentioned on DawgNation Daily today that this is the first year that the Reese's Senior Bowl is allowing juniors in the game. How does that change the game as a whole and the competition that's out there?
Yeah, well, it makes it a lot tougher to get a spot, that's for sure. I mean, these spots are really coveted. I think between 85 and 90% of the guys here historically get drafted. So if you're getting invited to the Senior Bowl, it's a pretty good indication that you're going to be drafted, whether Jim Nagy and his Senior Bowl staff have identified you as an NFL talent, or if an NFL team is kind of in his ear saying, hey, we'd kind of like to take a closer look at this guy, right? They kind of work together. The Senior Bowl is its own event. I don't want to call it an NFL event, but you can't help but notice all the NFL coaches and GMs and scouts and coordinators that are here. And they're here to evaluate. This is their in-person interview, their on-the-job interview. When they go to the Combine, very different, very corporate environment, very structured, in, get out, watch them compete. Here it's a little bit more laid back. Hey, let's catch dinner tonight, or maybe in the morning let's meet over at so-and-so tea shop downtown. So it's a lot more of a relaxed environment. You bring up the juniors, and now all of a sudden, usually I think I want to say 70 or 80 underclass, something to that effect. Okay, most. Maybe not most, but a portion of those juniors, if they're coming out, are probably first-round draft pick. But that still leaves maybe 40 or 50 guys in the pool that maybe you would choose from for this game, and that means less seniors, right? We hear Kirby Smart talking about, just how much the schedule's picked up now that you've got early enrollees coming in. Freshmen aren't really freshmen. They've been through spring drills already, right? So you've got that accelerated clock on these players, and now that there's NILs and transfers, I think you're going to see that clock accelerated even more, Kaylee, because if a guy's a really talented freshman or even sophomore and he hasn't played yet, there's going to be a school that's going to say, hey, we got a spot for you. And then, they decide, they want to be a third-string guy at Georgia their junior year, or do they want to go, start at school ABC and make a little bit more money. So, and that's going to get them on the field quicker. So I think you're going to see the clock continue to be accelerated on these players, and I think you'll see a higher proportion of juniors in this game moving forward, and maybe more of the talented seniors that are playing in the NFL are guys, maybe project guys like Ladd McConkey or like Eric Stokes that came in as a 3-star and then just develop within the program, or a guy that maybe gets injured early in his career, needs that year to recover, maybe takes that red shirt, or maybe like a Branson Robinson, right? A guy who normally might be ready to go pro after his junior year. Now maybe he sticks around for a senior year because he had a knee injury that cost him a season or a season and a half.
You had a story go up on Ladd McConkey yesterday. What else can we expect to read from you this week?
Yeah, I think Ladd's stolen the spotlight from everybody. I'm going to write. I can't wait to write about Marcus Rosemy-Jacks, saying I love his passion for the game. I'm going to write about William Mote. I hope to catch up with Javon Bullard at the media day over there today. Tyke Smith's not much of a talker. He keeps it pretty simple, but I think he'll open up a little bit. I think you had a chance to interview him today, and you probably got a little color out of Tyke in terms of him talking it up a little bit. So I'll probably try to get some Javon Bullard stuff. I want to pay attention to what some of the NFL analysts are saying, and I'll throw in there what I think as well. I feel like I know these guys as well as anybody, but it's always interesting to see what some of the, when one of the guys from the NFL.com network all of a sudden writes that Ladd's a top 50 guy, or somebody, Matt Miller from ESPN.com, writes that maybe Ladd gets in the first round. I mean, look, Ladd McConkey did not start this draft process as a first-round pick, but what he did on the field that first day, and it looked pretty good today, but that first day, he was unbelievable. I mean, like I said, that was a Senior Bowl day performance for the ages, for him to skyrocket up there like that. And now everybody can't wait to see what 40 he runs and what he does at the combine. And Ladd's number one job now is to get out of Mobile healthy.
You're right. I did get some really good coverage on Tyke Smith today. So make sure to check out our YouTube channel for all the individual player interviews that they do after the game. We'll also be covering the press conference that they're going to have today at the Reese's Senior Bowl. And make sure to check out DawgNation.com for all the articles that Mike is writing this week about all the dogs being represented here at the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Again, I'm Kaylee Mansell with Mike Griffith. Thank you for joining us for yet another day for day 2 of practice here in Mobile, and we will see you tomorrow on the pages of DawgNation.com.